favorites of all time for a lot of people. Chrono Trigger and Earthbound both came out '95.
Extraordinarily special games.
Well, go nuts. Have at
it. Chrono Trigger has a very, very special place in my heart because it's first of all, everyone knows that I'm very mechanics oriented and man, Chrono Trigger solved so many problems with JRPGs. Like I love grindy JRPGs as much as the next person, but almost everyone agrees like random encounters are no fun, only because there's no input from the player. So they're like, okay, it's fine. We're still gonna have encounters on the field like this, but you're gonna have the opportunity to kind of preemptively see that and make some kind of a choice about whether or not you want to engage in them or try to avoid them in some way. So it turned what is ordinarily something that's completely out of the player's hands into another form of gameplay, and that was a big thing that separated it. But the artwork from Akira Toriyama, iconic is probably an overused word these days, but the silhouette of, say, like Frog or Chrono or Robo, like all of them, like so many, like Gato, even Gato, I love Gato as a robot. And the soundtrack is just like unbelievable. Someone did a great crossover of like of Jay-Z tracks and the Chrono Trigger soundtrack that I listen to. I actually listen to it daily, and you can't. What's amazing about that era's music, but particularly the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, is that you can put it in other musical contexts, and it becomes actually difficult to tell where the melodies and harmonies from the Chrono Trigger stuff end and where the other music that it's been surrounded by begins, because it was that sophisticated in terms of how it was conducted.
But it's also the storytelling, right? I mean, it had so many iconic moments where I almost want to say spoiler alert because I'm so sensitive to spoilers.
It's been 20 years.
So
I still get goosebumps when I hear that theme.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, when you hear that ticking clock, by the way, in the very beginning of the theme, I get teary-eyed.
Me too.
Every single time. I'm going to do it right now. But, there was so many iconic moments. So, I mean, basically, this was before there was Aerith. There was that scene with Chrono.
Yeah.
And that was like, right in the field.
Because that didn't happen in many games. It's like, what?
Yeah, you can't kill off the main character.
Yeah, it's like, holy cow. And yeah, what you said about Magus, and that twist, the fact that here's who you think's the big bad for most of the game, and he ends up, is like, joins your party. If you let him. And then, but he doesn't really, like, he actually kind of hates you still.
Yeah,
so he won't cooperate with you entirely. Like the combo attacks, you have to equip the special item, just do that. And talking about that, this is a game that I think part of what makes Chrono Trigger still good. Chrono Trigger is still very playable. It's still excellent. A lot of restraint on the developer's part. They didn't try to do everything. It's a very streamlined, minimized system. It's just perfectly tuned and gives you just enough options to have some control over how the battles are unfolding, but not so many that you're drowning. It's very friendly to beginners, but it's also deep enough to satisfy longtime RPG players.
That's probably why we're still talking about it.
Yep. Yeah.
I also want to point out, Akira Toriyama, kind of, depending where you live, household name. I mean, creator of Dragon Ball Z, which blew the hell up a few years later. Anime hadn't popped yet stateside. It was still kind of this back corner thing in the West. So
it's right there. It's close, but it's not there yet.
And so many people's first exposure to that kind of big eye, spiky hair aesthetic was stuff like Chrono Trigger. And I mean, I remember like my friends and I just drawing stuff that we didn't know where it came from, but it was kind of tied to that. Toriyama's one of my favorite artists, and it's kind of funny to realize, oh yeah, like the first exposure wasn't Dragon Ball, it was Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, and then can I say that the battle animation, like the animation in the game is amazing.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing else like it at the time. Like this thing really pushed that whole 16-bit era, like right to the brink.
Yeah, the team up attacks looked
so amazing.
That frog, the giant holographic frog.
Yep.
Frog.
Yeah.